Hello, everyone. This is the 247th episode of Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog. For this episode, I welcome back Mr. Jan Roskott of the Dutch soccer site as we discuss the matches of the Dutch national team for the 1988-89 season. Welcome back, Jan.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Last time we left off at the end of the 1988 Euros, where Ruud Gullit, Marco van Basten, and Frank Rijkaard, Ronald Koeman, Erwin Koeman, that generation is at its absolute height. It's the height of Dutch football. What was the state of the Dutch national team and football in general as we come to the fall of 1988, where Dutch mania is at its absolute zenith?
Yeah, I think we were really high on that success. We had that beautiful canal boat trip. If many people have seen footage of that. The Dutch team, after winning the Euros, went on this canal trip, and people were jumping in the water and boats galore. And it was really a festive day. And I think everybody in the Netherlands felt like finally we won something, because obviously 74 and 78 we believed that we should have won something. And then in 88 we did, and there was another World Cup 2 years later. Everybody was certain that we were going to win that, and that we would probably be leading the charge for many decades to come. How wrong we were.
And let's not forget that PSV Eindhoven had also won the Champions Cup.
Yeah,
Ajax had reached the final of the Cup Winners' Cup after having won it in 1987.
exactly. Yeah,
And they had lost to a Belgian side of Mechelen that included many Dutch players.
yeah.
So,
And a Dutch
uh,
coach, if I'm not mistaken,
yes, at the
at the
most.
most. Yeah,
Yeah. So Dutch football was in vogue at this point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and the trio in Milan was doing incredibly well at club level there. So we were riding high. We had key players in key clubs in Europe. So the future was very bright.
Yes. Yes, you're right. That season, Frank Rijkaard joined his compatriots at AC Milan as Italy now allowed three foreign players in the Serie A. Dutch manager Rinus Michels left his post at the end of the 1988 Euros, and he was managing Bayer Leverkusen this season. The new Dutch manager was Thijs Libbrechts, who I believe had last led Feyenoord to the league title in 1984 with Cruyff as a player
Yes.
and Hullet as a player. What can you say about Libbrechts and his trajectory as a player and manager up to this point?
I think as a player, he didn't really make a big impact. He was a gifted technician, I think. He never really reached the highs. He's a Rotterdam guy. He played for Excelsior mostly, I believe, and he didn't really rate. But as a coach, when you win the title, even though Cruyff is probably the one who made most of the decisions, your reputation goes up. He was good in press conferences. He was good in the media. I think most people liked him. There's a famous decision made in that championship year to use a different left winger in the team instead of a creative left winger, Pierre Vermeulen. Johan Cruyff wanted Stanley Bart, who was actually a defender, as a left winger, because then Stanley Bart would take over the chores that Cruyff couldn't do anymore. And that tactical switch made Feyenoord very hard to beat, because Cruyff was free to weave his wand. That wasn't Thijs Liebrecht's decision, I don't think. That was Cruyff, obviously. Liebrecht never made it big as a coach afterwards. He went to Greece, where he, if I'm not mistaken, he had three clubs that he managed, I believe, in Greece. He probably filled his pockets and his bank account really nicely, but I don't think he made a big impact. And then after his Greek period, he got the job as national team manager.
The Dutch were clearly favorites to win a group as Euros winners, despite being in a group with West Germany, Wales, and Finland. Was this a new territory for an entire generation?
Yeah, I think the win over West Germany in '88 did a lot for our confidence. We always felt a little bit hard done by when we would play West Germany. We were always better than East Germany, I believe, but West Germany was a bit harder. So we were in the group with them again, but I think we had a lot of confidence, and obviously we had a lot of quality. So I think we felt like, okay, we'll do this. And I think that is a little bit the Dutch mentality. We were in several groups of death, like in 2008 and in 2006, and I don't know, maybe later as well, the group of death. But somehow that inspires us to do great things. And then we usually get ousted out of the tournament by a lower level national team that we actually should beat. So yeah, I think we were quite cocky in that time in 88, 89.
And in the players front, the only player who retired from the national team was Arnold Muren, who was 38 years old. So the backbone of the team was still intact. Did that also inspire confidence as they didn't really have to worry about many players coming to the end of a cycle?
Yeah, I think Michels did a couple of things right, and one of them was to create a squad with squad players that wouldn't really trouble the hierarchy. You know how you sometimes can have two or three playmakers in a team or in a squad, only one can play, but usually the playmakers are the ones, who tend to be the alpha male and whatnot. And Michels was smart like that. He would get players like Henry Kruse, who's actually a really good player, but he was also quite introverted and shy, and Wilbert Suffrein and Barry van Aarle, those guys, they were actual squad players that wouldn't mess up the hierarchy. The age balance was really good in that squad. They were all at a perfect age to become better and better. And I think you could see also between the Feyenoord, Ajax, and PSV players that they were more friendly than they used to be in the past when there always was some rivalry between the clubs. So everything was in place for us to have a phenomenal World Cup, except for, of course, that guy that we're going to talk more about, Coach Liebers.
The first test of the season was a World Cup qualifier on September 14th at Amsterdam at Olympic Stadion against Wales.
Mm.
Wales of Ian Rush, Mark Hughes, Dean Saunders, some of the familiar names.
Yeah, not a bad team at all.
Indeed. For this match, we have the following lineup: Hans van Breukelen of PSV Eindhoven in goal, Ronald Koeman, PSV Eindhoven, Adrie van Tiggelen of Anderlecht in Belgium, Frank Rijkaard, who had now joined AC Milan in Italy, Jan Wouters of Ajax, Barry van Aerle of PSV Eindhoven, Erwin Koeman of Mechelen in Belgium, Gerald Vandenburg of PSV Eindhoven. He'd be replaced by Wim Kieft of PSV Eindhoven in the 67th minute. Henrik Krusen of PSV Eindhoven, who at this point was a replacement of Arnold Muren in midfield. Ruud Gullit, captain of the team of AC Milan, and Marco van Basten of AC Milan in Italy. The Dutch found this match difficult to break down a Welsh side. They only broke the deadlock towards the end of the match in the 83rd minute. A free kick from the middle by Ronald Koeman was headed by Gullit. His first header hit the bar, and then he headed in the rebound and scored Netherlands' winner. So for their first match, first win, but it did not come easy. Did this in a way make the Dutch come down to earth and realize the difficulty of the task?
No, I think we were sort of used to the national team struggling a little bit in the first qualification game. It seems to be a pattern, and particularly if we've done well in a tournament, the next series of games are usually difficult. We had a great 2010 World Cup, and we had a terrible 2012 Euros. We had a great 2014 World Cup, and we were not even at the Euros in 2016. It's a bit of a pattern, and you saw it in '88 with '90. Don't want to be spoiling anything, but I think everybody knows what happened. Yeah, I think we're just rusty, maybe a little bit complacent, maybe a little bit arrogant. I think as you can tell from the use of Cruzen, again, he was a good player, but he was a number 10 in my book. But we didn't have left wingers somehow, or Thijs Liebrechts wasn't able to find them for some reason. So we were always struggling a little bit with the left wing. So he tried all sorts of different things, I guess. But no, I don't think we were worried. No, I think we knew particularly with the late goal from Gullit, I think usually we were strong enough to finally score a goal and get the points.
The next match was a much harder test. Just 4 months after facing West Germany, they faced them again at Munich. This time they were missing captain Ruud Gullit.
Yeah,
This is West Germany of Franz Beckenbauer as manager. A lot of the familiar names: Jürgen Kohler, Andreas Bremmel, Lothar Matthäus, Olaf Thon, Jürgen Klinsmann, Rudi Völler. So it was going to be a difficult match.
I think it was a 5-3-2, which clearly indicates what the plan was.
Indeed.
You
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, it was away. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah. For this match, we have the following lineup: Hans van Breukelen, Ronald Koeman, captain of the team in Hullit's absence, Adrie van Tigelen, Frank Rijkaard, Sani Siloy. At this point, he's playing for Matra Racing of Paris in France. Jan Wouters, Barry Van Aerle. He'd be injured and replaced by Aaron Winter of Ajax in the 19th minute. Erwin Koeman, Gerald Vandenburg. In Hullit's absence, we have Johnny Bozeman, who had joined Mechelen this season, and Marco van Basten. This match, the Dutch would come away with a scoreless tie, which was advantageous to them. They came away satisfied with this result away at West Germany.
I remember it was quite a physical game. Yeah. It was the rivalry between the two countries was clearly visible in the challenges and in the duels and what. And I think we only had one real chance late in the game with Van Basten. I think deserved much more.
And we should point out that the West German players refused to swap shirts at the end of the match. This was
Because of
in protest to what happened last time with Ronald Koeman and
yeah,
Olaf
yeah,
Tann's kit. So
yeah, yeah.
next, the Dutch have a friendly against Italy at Rome against the World Cup hosts. It was the Italian Federation's 90th anniversary match. Again, many familiar names for Italy: Bergomi, Maldini, Baresi, Vialli, Giannini. And in fact, it was the international debut of Roberto Baggio, this match.
Was it? Oh,
Yeah, yeah, at the time at Fiorentina. For this match on November 16th, we have the following lineup: Hans van Breukelen, Sani Siloy, making his international debut, Rob Riekers, playing at Bochum in West Germany, Ronald Koeman, captain of the team, Adik Kut of PSV Eindhoven, Rijkaard, Vandenburg, Wilbert Souvrin of Roda JC Kerkrade. This was his ninth and final cap for the Dutch. His first cap had been in 1986. He'd be replaced by international debutant Fred Rutten of Twente and Skede in the 69th minute. And in fact, this would be his one and only cap for the Dutch, Fred Rutten. Then you have Marco van Basten, another international debutant, Rene Eichelkamp of Groningen, and he'd be replaced by John van Loon of Roda JC Kerkrade in the 61st minute. And then another international debutant, Peter Huistra of Twente and Skede. So it's a very much an experimental squad. No Hullet, I believe, is still injured. Many other players missing. So this match, Italy would win 1-0 through a Gianluca Vialli goal in the 44th minute. But yeah, it was a very much an experimental side. So
well, like
not
I said,
much could be
we
judged from this. Yeah.
that's true. But what you can see is that Libres was looking for new partnerships, particularly on the left-hand side with Houstra. He tried different players. I think the next game was also a friendly against Israel, and he's trying some players there as well. I think we were the better team in that match because I remember that we were actually pretty good. Van Basten again missed a huge chance. And I think Houstra actually had a really, really good game. I mean, he was a very technical, light player. He's a bit like, well, who would you say today? Like a light-footed winger. Probably not the strongest personality because he obviously came from a smaller club and didn't have a big career in the Netherlands national team. But he definitely had skill. And then with Eichelkamp, he would go to Mechelen later on, I think. He
Um,
played for PSV Eindhoven as well, of course.
Eichelkamp played for, yeah, he joined Mechelen and PSV. Hustra, he joined Rangers Glasgow
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He went to Glasgow. That's right. Huistra played for Groningen as well, I believe. He was a very gifted technician, but he was a lightweight. But if you gave him space, yeah, he could really hurt you. Rutte only had one cap, but he became a very respected coach in the Netherlands, where he coached PSV, to a title and coached Feyenoord, and very highly regarded still in the Netherlands. And John van Loon would be one of those players that would lead the line for Ajax and Feyenoord. So it's an interesting character as well. But I think that Coat, Soerutte, probably Eichelkamp, Van Loon, and Huistra were never really national team material.
As the year 1988 ended, Marco van Basten won the Ballon d'Or with Ruud Gullit and Frank Rijkaard finishing second and third. So you have all Dutch players and all AC Milan teammates as one, two, and three. And Ronald Koeman actually finished fifth as well. Was Dutch football at the top of the world at this point?
Oh, probably, yeah. Yeah, I think we were feeling on top of the world, and we were really confident that we were going to win the World Cup because it was in Italy as well, which is where our three stars had all their successes. So it felt like a home World Cup almost. But yeah, it's didn't happen, I think.
So we come to the new year 1989. And right off the bat, there's a friendly on January 4th at Tel Aviv against Israel. For this match, we have the following lineup: Hans van Breukelen, Barry Van Aerle, Van Tigelen, Ronald Koeman, again captain of the team in Hullit's absence. In fact, the AC Milan trio were missing in this match. Sonny Siloy, he'd be replaced by Rob Riekers in the 82nd minute. Vandenburg, he'd be replaced by international debutant Yul Ellerman of PSV Eindhoven in the 46th minute. Wouters, Erwin Koeman, Johnny Bozeman, he'd be replaced by Rene Eichelkamp in the 68th minute. John van Loon, Peter Hoekstra, he'd be replaced by international debutant Rob Witzke of Ajax in the 57th
Oh,
minute.
was that his debut? Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So the Dutch would win 2-0. They scored quickly in the ninth and 10th minute. So in the ninth minute, after a combination play in the middle of it, Vandenberg, Jan Wouters advanced and scored the first goal. And just a minute later, Erwin Koeman's cross from the left side was headed in by Van Loon.
Which is what was his strength. John van Loon was a tall, lanky striker, a little bit like Wout Weghorst today, always making war in the box, good with his head. Not a great player, but because of his mentality, he was always he came to Ajax. I think he played for Anderlecht. He played for
Yes.
Feyenoord, so he was quite popular in that sense. Eichelkamp is a typical guy because he's also tall and lanky, but Eichelkamp was not a header of the ball. He would probably duck if the ball was going to his head, but he had incredible technique. He was a really strange player in a way, a bit like Crouch, Peter Crouch. He resembles Crouch a bit. Peter Crouch is also not the best header of the ball, I don't think, but good with his feet. And Jules Ellerman played for Sparta before he went to PSV Eindhoven. And he's a bit like Huistra. He's a small, thin, super fast, very opportunistic player, very popular because of his personality, but just a lightweight, I think, for the national team.
Early in 1989, Hans van Breukelen was injured and would be out for the rest of the season. Were there genuine worries about the absence of Holland's number one?
I don't think so. The people in the Netherlands have always been a little bit 50-50 about Van Breukelen. I think Everybody could see he's a great goalkeeper, but his personality sometimes worked against him. PSV fans would adore him. He was also at Utrecht where they really adored him. But I think the Feyenoord fans thought Hiele was a better option. I don't know. It's hard to say. But Van Breukelen did have aspects in his personality which would work against him. And then the crowd would sometimes boo him, and that would get under his skin, and then he would make it worse instead of better. But yeah, you can't criticize the guy too much because he did stop that penalty for us in the finals in '88. But Theo Snell, he was at Aberdeen, was he at the time, or was he still at
Yes,
Twente?
Aberdeen. Yeah.
Yeah, he probably was technically a better goalkeeper. He was an incredible shot stopper. He had tremendous reflexes. But I think he was probably a bit shy. Van Breukelen was very loud and very present. And I'm not sure if Snelders was a good goalkeeper off the line. I can't remember that, to be honest.
The Dutch's next friendly is a rematch of the 1988 Euros final against the Soviet Union. So this match is on March 22nd at Eindhoven at Philipsstadion. For this match, like we said, Hans van Breukelen is out, so it's Theo Snelders of Aberdeen who makes his international debut. The rest of the squad we have Adrie van Tigelen, Wim Hofkens of Mechelen. Interestingly, Wim Hofkens' previous cap was in 1983. So we're talking a gap of 6 years to earn his second cap.
That also happened to Jan Wouters, by the way. Jan Wouters also had his
Oh,
first
yeah, in
cap
82.
years,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, years before he became a regular. Yeah.
Ronald Koeman, Frank Rijkaard, international debutant Graham Rutjes of Mechelen. So you see, Mechelen, they had won the Cup Winners' Cup the previous season. That season, they would win the Belgian league title. So you see, there's a large Dutch contingent at Mechelen. So we have Hofkens, Rutjes, of course, Erwin Koeman, Johnny Bozeman, of course, who joined him that season, Piet Den Boer, who never played for the national team, and of course, managed by Ad de Moos.
Hofkens, I think, was a player that always played in Belgium, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe he started somewhere in the Netherlands, but I
He played
can't
at
remember him.
Anderlecht and then, yeah, Mechelen. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and he was a bit of how would you say, a buffy midfielder, good in the challenges, running and chasing and being very busy. He was not a great player, but it's one of those players you really wanted in your team because he would make your life easier. Whereas Graham Rodgers actually was a really good central defender. And he obviously had Koeman and Rijkaard and those guys in front of him. But I always compared him a little bit with Stefan de Vrij. Tall, good header, always quiet on the ball, always a good solution, never panicking. He was a really great player. I really liked him. And there were no other debutants, I think. No.
No,
I do remember this game. I think that we didn't deserve to win this. I think the Soviet Union was actually a better team. We were hammered, but yeah, we were able to win it anyway.
the rest of the squad is Vandenberg, Aaron Winter, Marco van Basten, Ruud Gullit, Peter Huistra. He replaced by Johnny Bozeman in the 72nd minute. And of course, we should mention that for Snelders, this was actually his one and only cap for the
Mm.
Dutch.
Mm.
This match, the Dutch would win 2-0. In the fourth minute, Hofkens' cross from the left side was headed in by Marco van Basten. And just before the end, in the 85th minute, Rinat Dasayev fouled Hullet in the box, and Ronald Koeman scored from the penalty kick. And just like the 1988 Euros, the Dutch won 2-0. Now we come to the most important test of the season, again against West Germany. This time on April 26th at Rotterdam at the Quip. And just to bear in mind that a week before, AC Milan with the Dutch trio had defeated Real Madrid 5-0 in an epic win. And Ruud Gullit was injured in that match, if I'm not mistaken. He would be more or less out for the rest of the season, though he would come back in the match against Finland and the second half when he was really needed.
Van
But
Breukelen and Wouters were also out, I think. Huh?
yeah, Van Broeklen's been out, and yeah, Wouters was out too. And for West Germany, we have again Andreas Brehme, Köhler, Karl-Heinz Riedler, Andy
Yeah,
Müller, Rudi
Rudy Vuller,
Völler, who'll be replaced
Matthäus.
by Klinsmann in the 34th minute, and yeah,
Mm.
Matthäus and Hessler. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah,
strong
yeah.
side. So for
Mm.
this match, we have the following lineup: Joop Hill of Feyenoord starting in goal, Van Aarle, Van Tigelen, Ronald Koeman, captain of a team, Rijkaard, Hofkens, he'd be replaced by Rutgers in the 85th minute, Vandenberg, Erwin Koeman, Marco van Basten, Aaron Winter, Hustra, and he'd be replaced by Eichelkamp in the 75th minute. Eichelkamp's entry was important as he would help with the equalizer.
Yeah.
The Germans would take the lead in the 69th minute when Andy Miller's free kick from the middle was headed in by Karl-Heinz Riedler. For a while, it looked like the Germans could pull away win, but just before the end, in the 88th minute, Eichelkamp passed to the right to Ronald Koeman, and his long range shot was deflected. Well, not deflected, but was connected by Marco van Basten in the box. And the Dutch came away with a tie, but very much the Germans looked like the better team who could have probably won this match with
Yeah, I
some luck.
remember that this was where Liebrecht got a lot of criticism, I think, for his selection because Gullit was out, and Gullit was, of course, driver and creative, and he put Winter, who was, I don't know, Winter was probably still in his early 20s, so he put Winter in as replacement, and he probably could have made other choices instead. That didn't really work out because Winter, Hofkens, and Erwin Koeman are basically workhorses.
Do you think this match was a reference point where there seemed to be actual worries about the progress of a team?
Well, I think there was not worried about the players, but the relationship between the players and the coach. I think that was becoming a worry. And we could see how good AC Milan trio could play and Koeman. And we did have some really good talents coming through, like Brian Roy and Witcher. But somehow the football just wasn't there. Is the next game, is that that's the Finland game, I
Yeah.
think? Yeah. I think that was the game where things started to unravel a bit.
So this match against Finland, this last qualifier and last match of the season, is on May 31st at Helsinki at Olympiastadion. Ruud Gullit is carrying an injury, so he did not start, but he came back because he was really needed. The Dutch really needed a win. And also, sorry, I was wrong. Hans van Breukelen was not out for the season, but he was out for most of the second half of the
Yeah,
season.
he was in this game.
He
Yeah,
was
yeah,
back
yeah,
for
yeah,
this match, so my
yeah.
mistake earlier. So for this match on May 31st, we have the following lineup: Hans van Breukelen, now back from injury; Van Aarle, Van Tigelen, Ronald Koeman, starting as captain; Rutges, Erwin Koeman, Vandenberg, he'd be replaced by Huistra in the 83rd minute; Rijkaard, Van Basten, Wim Kift, Ellerman, and he'd be replaced by Ruud Gullit in the 54th minute.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure whether Ruud Gullit wasn't fit to start or whether there was an issue between him and the coach. But I do remember that when he came on, he played as if he had something to prove because we needed a win. It was a difficult game. Weather sucked. It was again a change up of formation. I think we played with three at the back, with Rijkaard playing in midfield now, and Kieft and Van Basten as a tandem in the center up front. It was a struggle. It was a late goal, huh?
Yes, it was in the 87th minute when
Yeah,
Ruud Gullit's cross from the right side was
yeah,
headed in by Wim Kift, and
yeah,
the Dutch came away with an important win away from
yeah,
home.
yeah.
The Dutch were clearly having problems scoring goals. Was this due to the other teams playing defensively against the European champions, or were there problems within the Dutch squad?
I think the latter. I think most teams that want to play like the Netherlands, whether it's Liverpool, Barcelona, Ajax, when you play a low block, it's hard. We all heard it in the past press conferences in the Premier League where Arne Slot repeats it every time he has an opportunity. But it is true, they park the bus and you have to find a way through. You can do it in an opportunistic manner. And we had the players to do it, players like Kieft and Van Loon. They were players that you can use in an opportunistic style. But yeah, I think you need to have the pace and the creativity. And I think Libres was slowly losing the team because I think it was around this game because it was in the no, it probably was actually later on. It was in the fall, I think, of '89 when Libres had an interview and he made the historical blunder by saying that Ruud Gullit is actually quite lazy, and that's what you get with those blacks. That's what he said. There's no way back if you say those things, of course. And Gullit was incensed, and so were probably all the players. So that was the end of that. But these sort of things didn't help. Libret didn't get away with the comment that he made.
We should point out also that that season, AC Milan of Arrigo Sacchi with the Dutch trio won the Champions Cup in emphatic style at the end of the season, with both Hullet and Van Basten scoring twice in their win over Steaua Bucharest.
Yeah, what a game.
Was this like the further reflection of the Dutch dominance and the legend of the AC Milan trio?
Yeah, and it probably also fueled some of the issues there because I think that they had some privileges. They were allowed to come later into training camps. They were allowed to do things that the other players were not allowed to do. And I think when we had the '88 tournament, I think it was very clear who were the water bearers and who were the stars. But in the 1990 World Cup and leading up to that, some of the players that were considered water bearers, like Van Tichelen, Barry van Aarle, those kind of guys, they would feel that they were also stars and they also needed privileged treatment or something like that. So within the squad, issues started to arise. And then obviously when the coach is also not well liked, then yeah, you can't win anything then. And that's what we saw.
I mean, the season had been difficult despite the Dutch still being in the running to qualify. I know you mentioned the situation with Librex really unraveled more in the following season, but even within this season, were there still some tensions, you think, with Librex?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, you always hear stories because when a coach is not well liked, you hear all sorts of things about him. And if it goes really well, then the same things apply probably, but no one is complaining about it. And he could be cynical. He had his friends in the media that he would feed information to. He didn't manage it in a very smart way, I don't think. Probably the players didn't manage it very smartly either. This is still a time where a lot of people felt players should shut up unless you're Cruyff or Van Hanegem, then you maybe are allowed to say something. But in those days, players became more and more vocal. Ruud Gullit was a strong supporter of this anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. He was very politically aware. So, yeah, I think that things came a little bit to a head. Part of the development maybe of football in general. But yeah, I think Ruud Gullit was at a point where he was like, I'm not accepting this. This is just unacceptable and we need to change this. So the players got together, had their own meeting. Sadly for the players, Rinus Michels was the head of the FA, or the Dutch FA, if you like. So they had to deal with him about it all. It became a bit messy. I remember those games that we're discussing now as not being very exciting.
There would be a tragedy regarding Dutch football when on June 7th, 1989, there was the airplane crash of the Suriname Airways that claimed the lives of 15 Dutch based Suriname ancestry players. And this included the brother of future international Johan Veldman. Great tragedy.
Lots of friends of the players. Of course, Gullit could have played for Suriname if he wanted to. Obviously, he didn't, but he knew all these players. They were very tight knitted, and yeah, that was definitely a tragedy. Yeah.
Looking back at the season, in retrospect, was there too much pressure following the 1988 Euros? Was that an extra reason for the difficulties? Well, and of course, it would be really unravel more the following season, but you can see the difficulties this season.
Yeah, don't believe, I really don't believe that it was a matter of pressure. You got to handle those sort of things. It's very hard to have a second successful campaign after you won something. You can see it probably anywhere. Real Madrid was successful, then they changed coaches and then it imploded. You see it with Liverpool now. The fact that Guardiola with City won 4 titles in a row, I think, it's just unbelievable, really, if you think about it. It's very, very hard to keep everybody happy and inspired and motivated. And I think that, yeah, Gullit struggled a little bit with injuries and with his relationship with Liebrechts. his relationship with Van Basten and Rijkaard was such that they too would, have a particular idea about the coach, of course. And I think, like I said, there were some players that started to feel more important than they were, and they wanted similar treatment. I think Michels in the background didn't play a very good role because there was this popularity issue going on between Gullit, who was a columnist in one of the national newspapers, and so was Michels, but he was writing for the rival newspaper. So there's all these little things that started to happen that, how do you say that, cracks in the china sort of thing.
In an interview with French magazine Onze Mondial around 1990, Frank Rijkaard claimed that following the Euros, there were many players that the success of the Euros went to their head.
Yeah.
Was this a general view from the public as well?
It's not something we would notice. It's probably something you would know if you were close to the team. I don't think we realized it until those interviews came out. And I do remember closer to the World Cup 1990 that there were interviews by Van Tichelen, for instance, where he basically moaned about the fact that Van Basten was allowed to do this and he wasn't. And so there were cracks coming to the public later on. But initially, we had no idea, of course. And you just don't know. You see players in a team, and you think or you hope that they're all friends, but that's obviously not how it works. If you work in an office with 25 people, they're not all your friends. And it's the same in a squad of players. And particularly when there's ego involved and I want to play and I'm better than him. And you got to be really strong as a coach to deal with that. And I think Libres was not that good. I don't think he ever demonstrated to be that good. Do you remember when Libres was also a PSV coach at some point? That was that after or before 1990?
Much before, maybe early 80s, maybe
Mm.
maybe 82, something
Oh,
like.
right. Okay. Oh, yeah, you're right. He was coach at PSV before Feyenoord. Yeah.
Yeah, 82,
Well
right?
done.
82, 83, I think maybe. Well, 82 maybe. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
80, 80, 83 until 83, and then he made the move to Feyenoord.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Cleared
Yeah.
that up. Thanks.
And of course, during the second half of the season, you have Ronald Koeman signing for Barcelona for the following season for a large fee. So he's also entering a different category, joining a big club like
Yeah.
Barcelona. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was very much in demand since the previous season. They've been trying to sign him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He had an excellent season with PSV, of course, winning the what we call the Champions League today. And Ajax was doing well because, like you said, Ajax had that '87 European trophy, and there were a couple of young players like Winter and Witsche, Van Schip coming through the four as well at Ajax. And Libras just wasn't the coach to guide all that towards success, sadly.
In closing, as this season ended, the 1988-89 season, what was the mood regarding the chances of the Dutch and their future? Or in retrospect, was this a season to forget?
Well, you're on your way to qualify for a World Cup, so I wouldn't say it's a season to forget. And I think that we're sort of used then in Holland to be not that great in qualifying. We qualified with the edge of our nails for the '74 World Cup. We shouldn't even be there because of that offside goal, as you well remember. So we're always a bit struggling in those qualification games. We didn't like playing them. You had to go away to Finland in the winter, and bloody hell. Today it's a little bit different, I think. The travel is different, the pitches are better, and all this. But back then, I think a lot of players maybe even feigned an injury every now and then to not having to play. And I think we have that arrogance in the Netherlands that we'll qualify, we'll get there because we're Holland, and then we'll do well there, like we did in '74. And in '78, I think we had a lot of issues with Cruyff not going and then Van Hanegem not going, people protesting the government in Argentina. There was all that drama going on, and we ended up doing pretty well. So I think we all felt like once we're in that World Cup, we're just going to win it because we have the best players. And then you learn that having the best players doesn't always mean that you win the game.
Next season would be much, much, much more dramatic.
Yep, we'll
So a
have a
lot to
chat
look
about that, I'm
forward to.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh?
So with that, I would like to thank you once again for your participation in this series.
Sure,
All our respective contact information is listed on the blog and podcast uploads. So, Jan, thank you once again and hope to continue these discussions on Dutch football history.
sure thing. No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.